And we are now being joined by some very important ladies in the White House that are a part of the White House's initiative on HBCUs. Dietra Trent, she is the executive director of the White House Initiative on HBCUs, and Alexis Holmes, who is the executive director of the White House Initiative on Black Americans, and Brother Shomari. He's joining us. Of course, he is the host of Groundings, and he is joining us for this conversation as we here at WURD and on Brother Shomari's show and on my show, we are passionate about education, the opportunities that it affords African Americans. Ladies, please tell us what you are working on currently when it comes to HBCUs. Alexis, why don't we start with you?
Actually, if you don't mind, I'm going to defer to my colleague, Dietra.
Go ahead, Dietra.
So thank you. And thank you so much for having us. I really appreciate this opportunity. I'm always excited to talk about HBCUs. I am an HBCU graduate. Go Hampton Parrots, yay. We are working on a lot. The one thing I will say about this administration is HBCUs are not an afterthought in this administration. We are working on anywhere from things from artificial intelligence to machine learning, making sure that we are up on those standards. We're also working with the Department of Commerce, doing some chips and science stuff. We're making sure that we are providing opportunities for additional resources for research and building out research capacity within our HBCUs. Let me just step back and let people know what I do. A large percentage of what I do is to work with our federal agencies. We have 37 federal agencies. We work with them to make sure that they're creating greater opportunities for HBCUs to compete more fairly. So every year they have to provide a report to me outlining exactly how they're going to create those opportunities, as well as to eliminate some of the barriers that HBCUs have faced over the course of decades now. And they provide those reports to us, to my office. We provide it to the White House as well as to members of Congress. And so a lot of my work is contingent upon what's in those plans and working with our agencies to making sure that our HBCUs are at the table and that any obstacles or barriers that we need to eliminate, we can assist with those. So that's a large part of it. We're also working with some private sector folks. We're working with the PGA. As we know that the golf industry is about a $2 billion industry. And one of the initial partnerships that I created when I got here was a partnership with all four of the golf commissioners, and with the idea of getting our students in the business of golf. We have a lot of HBCUs of golf teams on campus, but I want them in the business. I want our lawyers there. I want our accountants there. I want our, communications persons there. And so we're working closely with all four of them to make sure that we have creating these opportunities.
And Alexis, tell us what you are doing in the office of for the initiative in Black Americans and with the HBCUs.
Well, thank you so much for having us here. This is truly historic and so exciting. We just absolutely love this opportunity. Dietra and I work very closely together, obviously. So as Dietra works directly with institutions, from our initiative standpoint, we work with the community, and we make sure, working across the entire administration, that Black children, Black students, families, entrepreneurs, advocates have the supports that they need so that they can exercise a variety of educational options, HBCUs being one of them.
Wonderful. Brother Shomari.
Yes, I'm a product of HBCU, Morehouse College, right. My question is, in the context of the pushback against things like affirmative action, the programs, to school, there's something called the issues in higher education, diverse issues in higher education. How do we go down in making sure that Black institutions matter and are sustained in the midst of the pushback against those things? And particularly the Blackness of the institution. How do we go down in that?
So
Brother Shomari was asking, basically, with affirmative action and all of the pushback against diversity, equity, and inclusion, how we're going to be able to sustain HBCUs into the future.
Yeah, so I would say that I think that's making the case for our sustainability even greater, right? The fact that we have so much pushback and the fact that we are in this period where they are trying to erase our history makes it even that much more important for us to make sure that we are sustainable. The one thing that I appreciate about this administration is, this administration has made the largest investments in HBCUs in the history of this country. They're not only trying to create greater opportunity and resources for HBCUs because we have been discriminated against for so long, but they also understand that it's important to have these voices at the table. It's also very important that if we're going to get out of some of the challenges, the enormous challenges that our country faces, we have got to have our voices at the table. That's the one thing about this administration. They appreciate diversity. They celebrate diversity. They understand that HBCUs are creating that pipeline for STEM. They're creating that pipeline for AI. They're creating the pipeline for health research. So, I think what folks who there's a scripture in the Bible, what you meant for not, God meant for good, we'll use for good. I think that's going to be something that's going to, the fact that there's so much backlash with DEI and affirmative action, I think that's going to be the thing that's going to force, create more opportunities for us.
Such that we don't have to rely on the largesse or the partnership of a particular program who had an office, but we can institutionalize and sustain going forward so that HBCUs will have to question their existence.
Yeah, so a part of what we're trying to do is create those partnerships and create those opportunities that are sustainable. This is not, that's the other thing that I appreciate about this administration. It's not about this administration getting checks in the boxes. It really is about having HBCUs at the table to help us deal with some of our challenges. And so part of what I do is I try to make those connections with our federal agencies and make those connections with the right people in the agencies to ensure that those are sustainable relationships going forward.
And I think Dietra hit on something important, and that is about relationships. So it isn't just internally, but also externally. And from our initiative standpoint, we're looking at how do we develop relationships with those Black educators, those Black entrepreneurs and other interests that are really going to be laying the foundation for our community, not just today, but like 50 and 100 years from now. And also I wanted to talk about one of our favorite words is intentionality. And we are very intentional, both of us, about not only talking to institutions directly, but we talk to Black educators and we make sure that we are regularly gaining their feedback and working on their behalf.
Funding is always a challenge when it comes to HBCUs. And in fact, the Department of Education said that HBCUs in 16 states, including Tennessee, were denied $12 billion worth of funding. How is what your efforts are doing? How are you addressing that historical inequity in funding for HBCUs?
So you all know that recently, well, not so recently, in September, Secretary Cardona as well as Secretary Vilsack sent letters to the 16 states, just letting them know that according to calculations in which they submitted to the department, by the way, that HBCUs were falling short. That was only since 1987. So just for the last 30 years. So when we look at what the real underfunding and underinvestment is, going back to, we can just say 1868. When we really look at what the real underinvestment is, it's off the chart, right?
Incalculable.
Right.
Yes.
And so that, what we're trying to do also is we're working with those states to see if we can help them understand the importance of I don't want to say anteing up, but anteing up, as well as putting things in place to make sure that we are also supporting them financially. So part of that is with the federal government. You mentioned the Department of Education. Department of Education alone has invested over $7 billion in HBCUs, but that's just us alone. This administration has taken a whole of government approach, and so we're looking at, for the first time ever in the history of this country, in the history of HBCUs, and HBCU is leading a university affiliated research center, and that's Howard University with 7 others for the Department of Defense. They're doing that research now. For the first time ever in the history of this country, HBCU is leading a university transportation center, and 12 others are doing regionals. They're doing that now. Department of Commerce has a pilot program called Connecting Minority Communities, in which they expanded broadband, not only to the HBCU, but also the communities they serve. We had 43 HBCUs to receive one of those grants to the tune of $134 million. NASA's doing a lot of stuff. Energy is doing a lot of stuff. My job is to work with these agencies to make sure that they have these opportunities, and that they're also doing things and investing and enhancing research opportunities. Department of Education, a part of the money that we've invested was a $50 million grant to invest in research, enhancing research opportunities on our campuses.
Despite these continuing inequities, because as you have just stated, these inequities go back so many hundreds of years that there's no way that they could be taken care of and made whole, so to speak, in the next administration or the one after that. But why then are they still so significant and important to the Black community?
Well, I could call the roll, Brother Shomari over there as a witness. But you look at 85% of federal judges today are HBCU graduates. Do you want me to call the roll? 75% of dentists and medical doctors are HBCU graduates. 80% of Black PhDs are HBCU graduates. Over 50% of engineers and over 50% of Black teachers are HBCU graduates. Why are we significant? We're significant because we're creating that diversity within the workforce already. We're creating the excellence that we receive on our campuses, that we're taught on our campuses. We are the leaders, and so it is critically important that we remain viable.
I was just wondering, is there a difference in how you all approach state-related HBCUs, a place like Cheney University, where we're from, versus the issues at a private HBCU, like say Lincoln University, is
We don't differentiate at all. There are obviously differences, obviously different needs. Some of the state universities have a little bit more of a safety network than our privates, and so we try to focus more, especially in areas where we need to enhance and build up. We try to focus in as much as we can on some of the privates, especially the smaller privates, right? Our job and our role, we're focused on making sure that we are creating sustainable opportunities for all HBCUs.
And as this backlash that we are seeing seems to be increasing, particularly as we go further into this election year, Alexis, I have to ask you, how does your office hope to alleviate that in your work with the HBCUs?
Well, I think relationships, partnership is key, and making sure that our initiatives, quite frankly, are one. And what we're doing is communicating directly with the community through a variety of options, be it through our virtual engagement, be it going directly into the community and making sure that our federal partners are with us on the road so that we can continue to provide information and really showcase all the historic resources and opportunities that are a part of this administration, including its advocacy, fierce advocacy in support of HBCUs.
And in working with the HBCUs, what are your greatest gains that you can celebrate right now with us?
I think it's really been around elevating the issues and the quite frankly, the urgency of building up more Black educators. And so we've been able to work very closely. You know, this administration has been able to secure historic funding for HBCUs and other institutions to make sure that they can truly diversify that teacher pipeline. Our children and all children benefit from having Black teachers and that experience. And so, you know, that is an issue that we've been able to work rather successfully on together.
Dietra, aside from funding, what do you think is the biggest need that HBCUs are experiencing at this point, and how is your office helping alleviate that?
So it's hard not to go back to funding.
Of course.
Let me just say, so, you know, obviously our students need additional resources. This is an administration that has increased Pell to its highest level ever. We're well on our way to doubling Pell, as the president has said that he wants to do. We're now at $73.45. I think it's increased by $900 over the last 2 years. We're continuing to focus on our students and making sure that they also have the resources. We're working with our president's board of advisors and other private sectors to make sure we're providing them with internships. We know that folks with internships have a greater opportunity to get real jobs after college, and so we're working on paid internships for them. The other thing is, you know, just more broadly is student loan forgiveness, right? Just making sure that we are 3.9 million. I'm going to get my facts straight. 3.9 million Americans have had their loans forgiven in this administration so far.
And is that enough?
Well, we're continuing to do it. I understand last week we announced another 153,000 at their last Friday. Another 153,000 Americans had their loans forgiven, and that's critical. That's really critical for especially people, African Americans, because we are most likely to be those who are well, one, we know we take out loans at higher rates, but two, we're also those who will be working, who are most likely to work in public service jobs. And so a lot of this has been targeted to people who have worked hard all of their lives and have been trying to pay back these loans forever. But it took a Biden administration to come in and say, we need to get this right. And I think we've done an amazing job supporting just regular working families. I can't tell you how many, I love seeing on Facebook people posting $200,000 forgiven or $10,000 under the SAVE plan forgiven. So it's that's, I think, is one of the things that I'm most proud of, because when you think about somebody with a $200,000 loan, that's $500 and $600 a month that they're putting towards a loan.
Dietra, I have to ask you, obviously you were here working for the Biden-Harris administration, but you did attend an HBCU. What did that do for you personally? What if there's someone out here right now who's on the fence about whether or not they want their child to attend an HBCU, maybe they have offers from an HBCU, maybe they have them from an Ivy League. What is it about the HBCU experience that was special for you, or even these years later after you graduated?
So I will say, had it not been for Hampton University, I would not be sitting here today. I will say that hands down. I think the one thing that is most unique about HBCUs is that leadership, for one thing, is not something that students opt into as a course or something. It is embedded throughout that campus, not just the curriculum, but throughout the campus. That's number one. Number two is service. We are taught that you are to enter to learn and exit to serve. I know so many people have remembered that slogan, but it is all about service. And so when we come out with this first of all, a sense of pride of who we are, because we have nothing but African Americans on our campuses showing us that excellence and believing in us and nurturing us and bringing out all that good in us, right? And affirming who we are. And then on top of that, it is all about leadership and service. And so I can unequivocally say, I tell people all the time, I got 2 degrees from an R1 institution in Richmond, Virginia, and 1 degree from Hampton, but I got educated at Hampton. I got my PhD and my master's degree at another school, but I got educated at Hampton. It is all about what I was able to achieve at that university.
And Alexis, as we close out, as the executive director of the White House Initiative on Black Americans, I'm going to ask you to quickly say what we can look forward to in the administration plans to come.
Well, I think you can look forward to us being in Philadelphia in a couple of months. The White House Black Initiative, we have a series, we call it our Power Up series. And we're going on the road, and we are going to be in Philadelphia, and we're going to have our HBCU partners as well as our other federal agencies to get up close and personal and get some information, as also, as Dietra was sharing, making sure that we are taking full advantage of the opportunities of this administration, including student loan forgiveness. We will descend, and we're looking forward to continuing that engagement.
Wonderful. Dietra Trent, the Executive Director, White House Initiative on HBCUs. Thank you for being with us on Reality Check. And Alexis Holmes, the Executive Director of the White House Initiative on Black Americans. It is a pleasure having you here today as we broadcast live from the White House complex here from the Eisenhower office building. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you.